Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
All right, Joe, spring football is officially behind us. It's in the books, which means there's a lot to break down. We couldn't do it alone. We assembled our esteemed panel of DevilsDigest.com folks. Starting to my left, Caleb Campero. I think this puts you ahead of Jack Loader because of the 0.5.
Wow.
From the lost episode.
That's something.
And, of course, the esteemed Hode Rabino for appearance number 100. Couldn't let this occasion go by without an award. May not be the gold watch that we talked about, but in recognition of 100 appearances.
In the words of Dirk Cutter, is this on in Phoenix? Well, thank you very much.
All right, so thank you.
Golden Mike, we got to have like a Hode Rabino award or something like that, annually. I don't know what it would be, but there you go.
For the next person, that's going to be number 100. Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Ralph's not even halfay there. So
He's the closest one.
Yeah, he's like 43 or 44 or something like that.
Kyle Dodd way behind, I'm sure.
Herm
Herm Edwards probably not going to make it.
Probably.
Yeah, you're at 7.5, so
Wow.
keep it up.
That's we're off to the races.
I think we need to do another like half. Just you can't carry a fraction forever.
All right, so we're going to dive in, of course, to all things spring football, the big picture questions, the positional battles, what we learned, some of the things that we still don't know after these 15 practices. But first, some news that we got to pass along, and of course, news always breaks on the days that we record, and it was a hell of a break earlier this morning for ASU basketball, and Bobby Hurley getting a big-time commit. Jaden Quintance, the center, 16 years old, 6'9", prior Kentucky signee, of course, let go after the Coach Cal situation. Hode, how big is this signing?
Well, just think about the fact that he's the highest-rated recruit that ASU ever landed since recruiting was tracked. So, yes, even higher than James Harden, even higher than Josh Christopher, ranked 8th nationally, the number 1 center in the 2024 class. I think a lot of the kudos, I should say, should be given to Jerence Howard, the assistant coach that was hired after Jermaine Campero left for GCU. Absolute shocker that he even came for a visit to begin with. And the narrative when he came to visit in Tempe this past weekend was he's still going to visit Memphis. He just delayed the visit to Memphis by a weekend. And obviously that was not the case. And just a real quick note over here. There was a very interesting tweet by Jeff Goodman, one of the premier college basketball analysts, that talked about a docuseries that's being developed that's going to follow Bobby Hurley and the program and tying into NIL over there. And Bobby Hurley said, maybe in a little cryptic way in an interview in March, towards the end of the season, that NIL situation at ASU is better. So I think this is something that has been in the works. And look, I've been flooded with questions ever since this visit took place last week. And like, how the heck can ASU afford this? They've been having NIL problems. They can't keep Frankie Collins. They couldn't keep the year before that Warren Washington and David Cambridge. How the heck are they going to bring a guy that is probably going to ask for high six figures, I should say, for NIL? Well, I think now everything ties into that Jeff Goodman tweet that there is quote unquote newfound NIL money, and ASU is using it and even using it wisely. And look, I mean, I think all the vibe around ASU basketball wasn't the greatest after Bobby Hurley's worst season in his Tempe tenure. So the fact that they're able to land this caliber of player to a recruiting class that already was in the top 25, that is major news. And I think now you're just looking at ASU basketball in a whole different light, going into the toughest conference in America, the Big 12. But I think they just have much more talent now than they did just a few weeks ago. And look, you can talk about coaching maybe is not up to par and everything, but if you don't have a good, if not great level of talent, I don't think it matters what kind of level of coaching you have or don't have. So I think this is a huge boost in talent, and I know a lot of talented also players from the transfer portal have been added to ASU. So I think that you're looking at this ASU basketball team in a whole different light because of the addition of Jaden Quintance.
So Hode, what kind of players is ASU getting? I know that the kind of the knee-jerk. There are a lot of folks that it's funny, and I get it to an extent, but it's like you get, like you said, the highest rated commit in the history of the program, at least, dating back to the last 21, 22 years. And there's still negativities, like, he's going to transfer in a year, this or that. One thing that's come up is, last time ASU got a 5-star center, of course, Enoch Boichi, very raw player, didn't necessarily pan out here, had a good year at Fresno State. So a lot of folks are thinking that might be the same kind of player ASU is getting just because they see a 5-star center. But I watched a little bit of this guy's film, and this is an athlete. So what's ASU getting here?
Yeah, he's absolutely, I would say, just like your prototypical NBA center. Let's take Nikola Jokic out of the equation. That guy's still an enigma to me. But I just feel like he's a guy that can absolutely run the floor. He does have the 7'3" wingspan, so he definitely can be the rim protector. He can draw defenders and dish the ball really well. So he's really a more modern center compared to somebody like a Enoch Bauchi, who really was like the maybe closer than Nikola Jokic. Again, nobody's unathletic as that guy is, but I think that's just a really dynamic player that. He knows the style of play that Bobby Hurley is going to run just up and down the floor. If he didn't feel comfortable with that style of play, I don't care how much NIL ASU has, he would not come to a place like Arizona State. So he's definitely your modern center that is really going to run the floor, is not going to bog you down. An absolute dynamic player, and I think now more than anything, if that guy can play up to his capabilities, this is now less pressure on a guy like Adam Miller, who I think might be the leading scorer for ASU this coming season. And by the way, there was a tweet that came out by John Rothstein that Adam Miller is going to stay at Arizona State. I know the transfer portal still has 2 more days to live and breathe, but supposedly Adam Miller is staying at Arizona State, and I think that when you get a guy like Jaden Quaidance, he really can just take the pressure off of everybody, can give that front court presence that ASU has. Let a guy like Sean Phillips take his time, develop. I think there's just a lot of good facets that this signing does bring. And again, just puts Arizona State basketball in terms of an optics / PR facet in a much different light than it was just a couple weeks ago.
And one thing to add, I believe it was said, but just to underscore and emphasize, because of his age, because of his reclassification from the 2025 class to the 2024 class, he is not eligible to enter the NBA draft until 2026 age-wise. So he's basically got to occupy himself for the next 2 years, whether that's at the college level or otherwise. So that's a really unique thing. I know that'll, again, going back to the kind of knee-jerk reaction of pessimism, I know a lot of folks are thinking that those 2 years aren't going to be spent at Arizona State, but that is a benefit, that he does not have the technical ability to be a one and done.
Yeah, I mean, if ASU can turn in a 20-win season, if the NIL level is not going to dramatically dip in the next season, I don't know why a player like that would not want to stay at Arizona State. And sure, I understand there are a lot of ifs in this, but if ASU is going to have any chance of turning in a better season in a much tougher conference, they needed to elevate their overall talent level, and I don't want to forget about the transfers that they got. I mean, I think like every transfer aside from Austin Nunes was averaging, I think, at least 17 points this past season. So scoring, that was such an Achilles heel for this team last year, I think on paper it really has a good chance of now being a strength. And a guy like Austin Nunes, just kind of unfortunate that after such a great freshman year, he did go to Ole Miss and averaged 6 minutes a game, and I think at ASU he averaged almost triple that his freshman year. So the fact that a guy like that wants to come back to Arizona State and really fill that void that Frankie Collins did leave behind, I think there's a lot of good things right now happening for Arizona State. I know the burden of proof is on them, and if you want to tell me that Bobby Hurley has no more excuses to turn in a season that even resembles what we saw last year, I am totally on board with that theory. But again, if ASU was going to have any chance of succeeding, they had to significantly elevate their talent level. So whether it's a top 25 recruiting class, whether it's a very impressive, I think, transfer portal class, I think Arizona State did exactly that.
So, Caleb, what do you think the moves of these last few weeks have really kind of done to reshape the narrative? Because just a few weeks ago, it seemed like everybody was conceding the fact that this Sun Devil basketball program, as Hood alluded to, going to the best conference in the country, was destined for the basement. Do you think that these moves, whether it is the high school signees or these kind of transfer additions, provide kind of a tangible lift to the prospects for Hurley in year one in the Big 12?
No, absolutely. I think a question right away is when you don't really see a 5 class of freshmen coming in and trying to like overhaul a roster. That's very rare in college basketball, and it's not something that you always want to depend on all the time. So I think that was kind of a question mark in itself, and obviously the roster at the time, we didn't really know how many transfers to expect out of the program. Of course, Frankie Collins is the big one, and Bryant Silabunge, and so there's a lot of moving pieces. And I mean, I feel like as a whole, as Arizona State, you know, you hear about collectively Jaden Rashada, and you hear about Elijah Badger, and it's like all these people leaving and everybody's Stepping Stone University, and you know, a lot of people like to bring out that narrative, but I can't credit Bobby Hurley enough for just managing. I mean, it's talk about number one in innovation, reaching out and getting docuseries and getting that going. I mean, Kenny Dillingham has said it. It's attractive when you want to look at the attractiveness of things in the Valley, and Bobby Hurley's obviously going into that. So I think it's completely switched the narrative, and I'm excited to see what Bobby Hurley is able to do with the tools that he's now been given. Obviously, we're still gonna have to see it on the floor and see how things are gonna pan out with a lot of, you know, now new guys and younger talent, and it's still gonna be I'm sure a bit of a pot of just kind of like mix and matching and see what we kind of get out of it. But at the same time, if you're an Arizona State basketball fan, I think you're in a better position than you were a year ago today, by far. I think there's a couple of question marks, of course, with the youth, but like Hode said, I mean, this transfer portal class, I think, is on the better end. I know a lot of people see some of the smaller school names, and they're kind of like, oh, well, like we didn't get anybody from Bama, or, you know, maybe an SEC school, or maybe a Pacific Coast Conference school that might be in the mix. But I mean, I credit Bobby Hurley and what he's been able to try to formulate. And I know a lot of people are very critical of Bobby Hurley, and especially after this last season, but I think he's given them a reason, like, hey, I told you I needed NIL. It looks like we're playing with a good amount, and we're going to see what we can go off to the races with.
So, Hode, I know there are a lot of folks that are very excited about this, and I've got a couple questions for you. First off, do you know if he has specific plans on when he's actually going to sign? Because, of course, a lot of fans don't believe it until the ink is dry. Yeah,
I believe the signing will take place sometime this week. Honestly, at this late hour on Monday night, I do not know exactly the day and time he's going to sign, but yes, he absolutely is planning to sign this week. It could happen later this week, but that is basically the situation here. Again, if ASU did not have enough of an NIL case to make to Jaden Quaidens and his camp, there would not be any commitment. I mean, this guy can write his own ticket, and that might be like a gross understatement in itself. So if ASU was not in a position that they felt good about signing Jaden Quaidens, I don't think that the player and his camp would really make that announcement. So I would like to think that the latest a week from today on Monday that he would sign with Arizona State, but I don't think there's really anything to be apprehensive about in terms of that happening.
And then, as momentous as this commitment is, you were talking earlier off the record that there's a little, collateral damage, a little fallout personnel-wise with this commitment, with this recruiting class, which seemingly logically seems as is a result of this commitment. So
yeah, I think tell
us what we can know.
Yeah, about 15 minutes before we all walked into the studio over here, there was a decommitment of Jaden Smith. He was an incoming freshman center, and I don't really have to break out the crayons too much over here. I mean, Jaden Smith obviously saw the announcement of Jaden Quaidens. He knows that he, first and foremost, was going to be affected by that because you also have Sean Phillips ahead of you in the pecking order. So Jaden Smith, I think a talented 6'11" center from Chicago, somebody who I was tracking his senior year, did actually put up some good numbers, but obviously he really saw the writing on the wall that he's much better off playing elsewhere. I do think it's a win-win situation. This is not me putting on a spin, and here's my explanation. When ASU is a team that only has 3 returning players, I don't think they could afford to have an incoming freshman class of 5 players. Right now, you need not only talent, obviously, but also experience. So now, with Jaden Smith's decommitment and even the Jaden Quaidens coming on board, Now ASU has 2 scholarships to fill, so they can do that with experienced players. They can add probably even one more wing player, which I don't think would be a bad idea, and then decide, okay, do we want to get another front court player? Because a lot of those true freshmen that came in are, they stand 6'8" and taller. So I don't know if front court is really that much of a burning need, and maybe actually to get a pure point guard would actually what ASU would be looking at, because I think both Austin Mason and Austin Nunes, sure, they can play the point, but I think they're really more combo guard in terms of their pure skills. So this opens a lot of possibilities for Arizona State. Again, the naysayers are going to say, "Oh yeah, look at ASU; they couldn't even hang on to an incoming freshman center." But in light of everything that happened today, I think that was the most logical move that happened probably in all of college basketball today.
Caleb, can you help me understand something? As a young student in the room, you need to be like our lifeline here.
Yeah.
Why is everyone named Jaden?
I don't know. I when I look back,
Why are you named Jaden?
I know that we were around them, but I'm trying to think, was there something like social? I can understand if everybody was named Kobe. You know what I mean? I could understand if everybody was named Shaquille.
Right.
Or Favre. Or I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm trying to throw something out there. Why? It's a perfectly fine name, but I just don't understand everybody's named Jaden.
It's funny because I just think it follows at Arizona State, just because I just think about in high school. I don't even know if I knew a Jaden in high school. Or I don't even know if I knew a Jaden. No, I knew a Jaden, but it was a girl who was a friend of mine back in high school. That's it. I think that's it.
Did she wear jersey number 5?
I think she did play basketball, as a matter of fact. But
she wore number 5 too.
But she did not wear number 5. But yeah, it's weird. I don't remember a Jaden in middle school. I don't remember a Jaden. I remember one Jaden in high school, maybe 2. No, there was somebody that I played freshman football with. So, but I don't know. I can't think of anything that was going on in the world
culturally
in 2003 or 2003, 2004, 2005. That was I don't know what Jaden was really going.
I was around. I was in college then. You know what I mean? I was kind of. It's just
I could not tell you.
Any Jadens out there that are listening and want to give us some input on why you're named the way you are, hit us up.
All right. So before we change gears to football. Little update on where things stand, Hood, on the AD search. It's been quite some time now, obviously, with the fallout of the sanctions that were revealed by the NCAA recently. That's kind of put a focus on. ASU still has nobody kind of running the ship on a full-time basis. There's been some reports about some possibilities and maybe perhaps pushback to those possibilities. Where do things stand at the moment as we record on this Monday?
Well, I would say if you go back all the way to January, Ray Anderson's out of a job for about 3 months. The prevailing notion was that University President Michael Crow was really trying to get the athletic department in order to have the NCAA sanctions announced in the rearview mirror so he could bring in a new athletic director into the fold. And the speculation, again, back then in January, February, was, okay, he's probably going to bring somebody from the outside because you want to make this job as attractive as possible with less nonsense, if I'm using G-rated language, to clean up and to deal with. And I know that everybody was a little in a frenzy when David Benedict, the athletic director at UConn, here in the Valley already, with his basketball team, which obviously, as we know, now back-to-back national champions, was in town. David Benedict, those who don't know, was born and raised in the Valley, did not go to ASU, but was in the athletic department at ASU, I believe, for about 8 or 10 years back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I know for a fact David Benedict did want this job. And for Michael Crow to not even interview David Benedict when he's here in town, you don't have to charter a plane to go out to Storrs, Connecticut, or to bring him here for an interview, I think was really true negligence. But I did report to my subscribers for months now that it was going to be probably an in-house hire of Graham Rossini, one of the associate athletic directors. Obviously, if the name sounds familiar, he was a player for Arizona State baseball. Obviously, was in the Diamondbacks front office for many years. He's been with the athletic department in Tempe since 2021, if I'm not mistaken. So I told everybody that if there's going to be an in-house hire, Graham Rossini was going to be the guy. And I think all of us were just contemplating, okay, is Michael Crow going to go the in-house route, or is he going to hire somebody from the outside? When David Benedict came and went, pun intended, then we just all knew that it was going to be an in-house hire. It was going to be Graham Rossini. And that is something that did definitely drew the ire of the boosters. Think about the near June Jones hire that ended up being Todd Graham back then in late 2011. So I think what's going to happen right now, I do believe Graham Rossini is still going to be the hire at athletic director, but I think the Arizona Board of Regents is going to want to have safeguards, for lack of a better term, in place. Maybe have a person that's going to be in between Michael Crow and the athletic director, just seeing what happened when Michael Crow and Ray Anderson had that direct report relationship. Ray Anderson obviously reporting to Michael Crow. So I think that's something that needs to be changed. I know there's some talk about having incentives written into Michael Crow's contract that where revenue sports like football and basketball do well, then not only is the athletic director going to get a bonus, but you as a university president is going to get a bonus, because a lot of knock on Michael Crow is that he was putting way too much emphasis on the Olympic sports. Here ASU going into the Big 12 with 26 sports overall, and I think when you look at all the returning members of the Big 12, I think the highest number of sports is somewhere around 18. If ASU is going to be competitive, even if there wasn't NIL, but especially because there is NIL, you just have to be much smarter of how many sports you're going to keep. Do you have the financial wherewithal to really support all those sports? So those are a lot of questions that a guy like Michael Crow really has to answer if he is going to have an in-house hire. And again, you're talking about a house, and I'm nothing against Graham Rossini, but that was a house that really was in disorder for a long time. And that's why the boosters, and rightfully so, and I think the fan base at large, wanted that outside person to come in with a fresh perspective and really get this athletic department in order. So that's not going to happen in terms of having an outside person coming in. But if it is going to be an in-house hire, still things have to be done differently. We'll see how differently when they have everything said and done. But make no mistake about it, Michael Crow is getting a lot of pushback doing an in-house hire, whether it's Graham Rossini or anybody else. I think it's still going to be the hire, but I'm just wondering how it's all going to look like when it's all said and done, especially with who the athletic director is going to report to, and just how different the athletic department is going to look once Graham Rossini is going to be the head person in charge.
And do you have a timeline? I know that certain things have been said, the school year, all these checkpoints that have kind of come and gone in some cases.
I'd like to think it's going to happen by the end of May. I know Michael Crow went on record on an interview with the State Press, I think a couple of months ago, thought it's going to be by the end of the semester. Correct me if I'm wrong, Caleb. I think the end of the semester is coming up pretty quickly over here next week. Right?
I have a final due next Saturday.
Okay, there
and
you go.
That's about it. Most kids are done. Pretty much everybody's done. So that's all I'm saying.
So I mean, I think by the end of May, I would be shocked if it really spilled over beyond the first part of May. But this thing's been dragging since November, Brad. So, I mean, it's, just like the instant investigation. When is it going to end? When is it going to end? I mean, just try to make educated guesses over here. And it is kind of ended for all intent and purposes. So, by the end of May, I think ASU is going to have a permanent athletic director, probably even the beginning of May.
Those Ray, you suck chants at the Rose Bowl just seemed like forever ago. It was a long time.
Wow.
And as a reminder, ASU was obviously the host school in the Final Four. Ray Anderson, don't ask me why, represented ASU during the Final Four weekend.
That's right.
It's just the gift that keeps on giving.
Unforced error after unforced error. All right, so before we dive into spring ball, some real quick, go over some nice recruiting pickups. First on the high school recruiting trail, a 2025 local commit, Dejon Hinton, a Saguaro SaberCat, 5'11", 175-pounder, an athlete who probably might project a little bit to defense, but I think most importantly, the highest rated local commit in, I believe, 7 years, since Tyler Johnson.
Yep.
Or so?
Number 3 recruit in state, like you said, a very gifted athlete. Did unfortunately tear his ACL last year, so was not able to play his whole junior year. But as a sophomore, generated a lot of interest, had double-digit Power 4 offers. Arizona State really worked the home angle very well. Obviously, being from Scottsdale Saguaro, Jason Mons was his head coach a couple of years ago. we all know Kenny Dillingham, the local flavor of the staff, really paid dividends. And I love the interview that I have on my front page with Dejon Hinton, saying that he was recruited as a person, not only as a player. So it's not like the ASU staff is just really taking for granted. Oh, you grew up in Maricopa County. Yeah, you're ours. You're going to be a Sun Devil. I mean, they really put a lot of effort in that. They really show from an X's and O's perspective how he can fit. Because he's recruited as an athlete, like you said, he could be a slot receiver, he could be a defensive back, even a punt returner or a kick returner is something that's been discussed. So I think Arizona State was able to really push all the right buttons. His good friend Ryland Dillard Allen committed the week before, and we said that if that commit's going to happen, then he can start at least the domino effect start with Dejon Hinton. And sure enough, even though he came on an unofficial visit, his official visit is only on May 31st, he did not want to delay the inevitable. So again, for all the naysayers that were asking, where are the local recruits that Kenny Dillingham did promise us? Dejon Hinton, number 3 in-state, the highest in-state prospect that was not committed up until yesterday.
And a little added bonus that I spotted in the huddle that fans will love is that he grew up as a child in Tucson, and his dad and brother both played football at the U of A, if I'm not mistaken. So, another thing to be happy about.
Or fell far from the tree in a good way.
Yes.
All right, so a couple of transfer portal additions, and of course we'll cover the subtractions here when we go over the kind of spring rundown. But talking that AFC obviously had a couple of areas of need. Probably first and foremost, given some of the numbers at tight end, but Jamon Tap is coming over to help fill that role there. Started his career at Cincinnati, had a cup of coffee at Colorado, and is part of the mass exodus of the Buffaloes up there. What do you guys think about this addition? Obviously, his position of need, just from a numerical standpoint, but obviously adding a guy who I believe last year for the Bearcats scored 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, he had 23 catches, 258 yards, 5 touchdowns. Statistic. I know that Bryce Pierre, wasn't the top tight end, but they're better numbers than what Pierre had. So if you're going to lose a guy to the portal, if you get someone that can contribute, that's a big deal to me. He's got 2 years to play. So again, staying in line with the theme from the transfer portal acquisitions ASU made, earlier this year and the tail end of last year. Not a lot of these one and done caliber guys. So that to me looks like a real solid pickup, and weird deal where he was going to go to Colorado, and he's part of that whole chaotic mass exodus. It just seems like every single day, if you follow these transfer portal, Twitter accounts, it's Colorado. So he kind of joins that. I don't know if he's like the player to be named later from Juwan Mitchell or what the case may be, but
BJ Green trade.
There you go. Right. Yeah. Juwan Mitchell didn't really do much for anybody. So, it's big pickup, area of need, a guy that's played and performed, that's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, so I guess that's 3 Big 12 spots in a matter of a couple months for Mateo. But hopefully he got an opportunity here. Of course, with the numbers being what they are at the tight end spot, and then ASU helped bolster the defensive line. Of course, that's a group that is going to be coping with the loss of Anthony Cooper to an ACL injury. But they added Jamon Tap from Texas, 6'3", 250-pounder, 3 years left, a former 4-star prospect, 8 tackles, 1.5 TFLs last year. Now, as we'll get to, ASU's had some, the D-line is, especially that edge spot, it's very talented guys, but, when you're losing a guy with that experience like Cooper, bringing a guy from Texas is a pretty nice addition.
Yeah, and also just bringing somebody in the mold of Anthony Cooper, a heavier guy, maybe compared to the physicality of, or the physique, I should say, of a Prince Dorba, of a Clayton Smith. So to bring just a heavier guy that maybe in the corporate packages when it's an obvious passing down, where you really have just your heavier defensive ends play in the middle, and you would have Dorba and Smith probably play each at end. So it's not only replacing Anthony Cooper, but also replacing just the physique of Anthony Cooper, if you will, in a guy like Jamon Tap. Obviously you probably got a ringing endorsement from Prince Dorba. Brian Carrington knows everything and anything about Texas, so obviously he was able to vet him also. I think just a very, very important pickup. Just like Mateo, there was a definite need for that position, and you're able to fulfill those positions before the portal even closes. That's definitely, I would think, a feather in the cap for ASU to really address that quickly before spring practice even ended.
Yep. I couldn't have said it better.
and Tap was, the number 79 overall recruit, the number 4 defensive end in the 2022 class. So this is someone that's, similar to the likes of Adorbo, or especially Clayton Smith, that had high recruiting pedigree, and now making the way to Tempe. And I think this is, golly, how many transfers at some point that are or will be on ASU's roster played for UT, because obviously you got Dorba, you got Jake Smith, you got Alford, the ones that began there and then went to other schools. So
I would say in terms of both transfer portals players that either grew up in Texas or played for the University of Texas, as well as high school players that did go to high school in Texas. I think the number right now, since Ken Dillingham arrived, is really close to 20.
Wow.
And that's just an amazing number. And by the way,
it's not Rosterland either.
Yeah, not Rosterland. And by the way, I'm going to throw a little teaser over here. I think Nick, I think for the folks that are yearning for the Cali Devil days, I think in a few days you're going to see that Cali Devils is kind of making a return too, and just adding both quality and quantity from the state next door. So
get in the huddle, folks.
Stay tuned to that. But everybody knows fertile recruiting territories: Florida, Texas, California. It's going to be hard to getting guys from Florida, but getting guys from Texas and getting guys from California, that is definitely within ASU's reach, pun intended. And ASU, I think, is doing a definitely great job in Texas. But I think in California, you're going to see slowly but surely the quality and the quality and the quantity from that state. The numbers may not be as Texas, but I think they're going to be higher than people thought they would be.
Plus, we're seeing the kind of getting the poly pipeline back up and running, so that helps well. I guess all they need now is just some success in Georgia or something. Georgia's like a top 4 or 5 state.
I'm opposed to the Cali Devils movement.
Yeah.
So I'm right there for it. So,
and curious if they can even get back into Florida. I mean, with the UCF being in the conference, I mean that is a little bit of an advantage that you didn't have back when. So
sure.
All right, let's dive into what we learned during spring football. Obviously, there's a lot of position battles that are going on, a lot of new faces that had an opportunity to make their mark with the coaching staff, and also some things that some new questions that were raised, that we didn't have heading in. Let's, kind of start and kind of take like a big picture view. Starting obviously at quarterback. It was the big battle. All the spotlight and the attention was on that quarterback battle. We expected it to be a 3-man race. It started off as 2-man because Jaden Rashada was out with an injury. He came back, and now he's gone again. Of course, he's now in the portal and has committed to Georgia. But right, kind of the big thing here, as Kenny Dillingham said, that if the season had started today, that Sam Leavitt would be the guy. Mm-hmm. Guys, I mean, how do we think that that's the correct move? How did we get to this point where Sam Leavitt, of course, nobody's been named the opening day starter, long way to go, all those caveats that we have to throw out there, but we'll throw it out there. How do you think Sam Leavitt earned that, as of today, that QB1 name?
Yeah, I think Sam Leavitt definitely was the best quarterback out there. Now, don't get me wrong, he did not come blazing out of the gates by any means. I think he did have a slow start just to acclimate to everything, and a guy like Trent Bourget did have the leg up. I think in some respects, at least in that first week. If Jaden Rashada was healthy, he might have had the leg up too. But I think slowly but surely you really saw Sam Leavitt just being an accurate thrower, having the stronger arm than the other quarterbacks around him, and maybe a healthy Jaden Rashada could match him with that arm strength. But as we know, he wasn't healthy for the entire spring practice. Basically, I think what I like about Sam Leavitt is that even though he might have the stature of more of a pocket quarterback, a legitimate 6'2", 200 guy frame. He's somebody that when we saw him roll out on bootlegs, he throws the ball very well.
For our YouTube audience right here on the big screen, he's a 16-yard touchdown run in the spring game. Like his legs are pretty formidable.
Yeah, again, I mean, you just expect the quarterbacks that are taller and a little bulkier may not to be as definite of a runner, but I think Sam Leavitt has definitely showed that trait too. And look, Marcus Arroyo is a quarterback guru. I mean, 2 words, Justin Herbert, enough said. I know the guy sucked against ASU and just kicked ass against everybody else. That's maybe, an investigative report for one of these days. But otherwise, I mean, if Marcus Arroyo is somebody of his stature, I mean, a clear upgrade at offensive coordinator, and I'll leave it at that. If he thinks that Sam Leavitt is the best quarterback out there, I think that's somebody that ASU fans are really should take really take that to heart. Now, we know Arizona State is going to bring another quarterback from the portal. Kenny Dillingham said flat out, I want the guy to compete and beat maybe even Sam Leavitt if that's possible. So if you can get a quarterback from the portal that can really increase the competition level in that room with Jaden Rashada leaving, I think it's only going to make Sam Leavitt better. And who knows, maybe that quarterback from the portal is going to be the starting quarterback. But nonetheless, from what I've heard from Sam Leavitt, his steady progression now throughout spring practice, I don't think this is a lesser of two evils by any means. I think Sam Leavitt can grow and to be a solid Big 12 quarterback.
Yeah, for me, it was just the last 3 weeks of spring, because the first couple weeks it seemed like he was just getting his feet wet, and I thought they were maybe neck and neck a little bit, but neither quarterback really wowing or anything. But then it was just once Sam Leavitt kind of got a better feel for the playbook, his teammates, his weapons around him. You saw, obviously with his leg, but just his ability and willingness to attack downfield.
Absolutely.
He was delivering that second and downfield second level balls, and obviously the chemistry with Jordan Tyson really flourished once Tyson got going. And so Caleb, you were out there. What did you see from Sam Leavitt that that kind of maybe jumped out to you? And do you think that him being in that pole position after spring, pre-summer, is the right place for him?
Yeah, I think ultimately for me, I've preached this, that Trent Bourguet and Sam Leavitt are just two different quarterbacks, and ultimately at the end of the day, I think Sam Leavitt just kind of fits more of what Kenny Dillingham wants and Marcus Royal want to do on offense. Kenny said it before that they want big playability, and when it just comes down to pure arm strength, I think that's why Jaden had the leg up, last fall, and I think it's a big reason why Sam has the leg up right now, just because when he did get that confidence and those second and third level balls started coming, especially with how they've wanted to establish the run game and then get into the play action, they're going to want to get into play action and hit a couple deep balls, I'm sure. And I think Sam just fits that, and when he gets his confidence, it works, and we've been able to see it with a lot of the chemistry that we alluded to with Jordan Tyson. I'm sure we'll see it. We saw it over the middle with Coben Bourguet. We saw it over the middle with Melquan a little bit when he was in Sam's group. You saw it with quite a few different people. I'm very curious to see how it'll develop, of course, once we get to fall, but I think, again, when you add the confidence with the arm strength and just kind of what they're trying to do offensively, I think that it just kind of fits Sam the best. I wouldn't be surprised if whoever they bring in from the portal pre-fall is also somebody with a bigger arm. And I don't really think it's much of a lose-lose situation, because if you're Trenton Bourguet too, if you talk to Trenton, if you see him around the program, he is all about the program's success. And if he can provide that level of being a veteran for Sam or for whoever's in the quarterback room. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not going to shy down from the competition, and he wants it. But at the same time, it's just not a lose-lose situation where I think Sam just fits. And I think overall at the end of spring, you're able to see the movement ability out of the pocket, the big playability, and just like a lot of these different things that I think just fit a little bit better. And I ultimately think that's kind of the difference overall.
So you guys are out there. You see a lot more than I do, obviously, since I'm not out there on the scene. As we shift gears from the spring, kind of look ahead to the fall, do you honestly and genuinely think that this is going to be a quarterback competition, or do you think that the separation that occurred according to the coaches is so substantial, or the attributes about the quarterbacks are so significant that it would really take a significant action for things to change from what they are now?
I don't think it's TBD, but I also think the competition is probably going to be between Sam Leavitt and whomever they bring out of the portal. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying Trent Bourguet, etched in stone, is not going to be the number 2 quarterback when the season starts, but I think just the X factor over here, or the unknown, is really going to be who they bring out of the portal. Is that guy really going to be better than Sam Leavitt? Is the guy be better than Trent Bourguet? At this point, your guess is as good as mine. So I think the competition right now really is going to be TBD. Once we know who's coming out of the portal, once we see that quarterback the first week of fall camp, we probably could get a better sense of that. But needless to say, that Sam Leavitt is going to be the starting quarterback. I don't think anybody would be shocked that it did take place.
Yeah, I think that he's in a great spot right now, and I do think it's probably. I think the staff maybe views Trent as like the break in case of emergency type of guy. He's steady. You know exactly what you want. You know he's going to be absolutely prepared.
Absolutely.
Whether he's QB 2, 1, 3, 5, whatever it is. You know he's going to be ready to go. But I do think that obviously they brought Sam in for a reason. There is that kind of notion that Trent is from the last staff, and that Leavitt's kind of this staff's guy, perhaps so to speak, or that narrative might be in play. But obviously, I think we all agree that being out there, Sam had a better spring. I don't think he set the world on fire, but you saw the trend line, the trajectory go exactly where you wanted to go, and going up. And I think that's just going to continue. So yeah, I think whoever they add, because they absolutely need to add another scholarship level arm. To that room, I think that will be the intriguing battle. But as we've learned, you just can never count Trent Bourget out.
No.
And so, it's not as though obviously that like an official announcement's been made, but there have been quotes and, things that you can easily, do the math on it. Do you all see, to kind of play devil's advocate here, do you all see any downside in even just kind of letting that narrative slip into the public and having that affect the competition in any negative way of, more or less unofficially anointing someone, even if it is, the earned spot? Is there benefit to keeping it open publicly to help the iron sharpen the iron? Or is it just is that not a factor?
I think for me, I don't think it's going to be much of a factor, because I think ultimately Kenny Dillingham has made very public, like, if you're going to even try to come here, you're going to compete, you're no matter what. And so I think he's also said very clearly, like, I'm not going to lie to you, and I don't think he will. So I think if he's talking to anybody in the portal right now, he's saying, hey, Sam's the number one guy right now. You're either going to come here and try to challenge him, or try to challenge for that number 2 spot, or you can go try to find somewhere else where they're going to either give you empty promises or tell you you're going to fit right into the system and play. So I don't know if obviously I don't know how public it'll be to maybe us, but within the confines of whatever meeting rooms, Zoom calls, text messages are going on, I think I wouldn't be surprised if Kenny Dillingham's telling anybody in the portal right now, hey, Sam Leavitt, he has earned that number 1 spot right now. And if you are up to the challenge of challenging him or trying to take on Trenton for that number 2 spot, we'll be happy to have you if you want to be able to come into this program and build something and either be a part of getting Sam better, getting yourself better in that competition aspect of things, and just ultimately better creating that competitive atmosphere that they so desperately desire. But I think if they keep it public, kind of within whatever confines of conversation they're having, I don't really think it'll have much of an effect, just because Kenny's been very blunt about, I'm not going to lie to you about what the expectations are or what my expectations are for you.
All right, so obviously a lot to track there, but we'll see who is added to that room and how things progress over the summer. We know a lot can happen when those, kind of behind the closed doors during the summer months, and how that shakes out in the competition come fall. Moving on to running back, obviously there's a lot of things, good performances that we saw. We saw a leaner Cam Scattaboo.
Yes.
Some better burst, explosiveness, although while retaining a lot of that power. Raleek Brown, had that explosive, but also showing off that power. Perhaps a little bit is more of a surprising element. Kyson Brown looked good all around. George Hart had a strong spring. Guys, how do you think the pecking order maybe just kind of shakes out right now with so many guys? Obviously, Jason Brown, the 4-star freshman, he's coming in over the summer as well. DeCarlos, unfortunately, dinged up a little bit throughout there. But, how do we see, this very loaded backfield, just one football? How do you think the situation maybe shakes out given what we saw in spring?
Yeah, I think it's a much deeper running back group, like you said. And I think Scattaboo and Raleek Brown, maybe a 1 and 1A. But players that I think are much more similar than you think they are different. So I think that is a very, very strong combination. DeCarlos Brooks can really be just the X factor, because, like I said, we barely saw him in the spring due to injury. And we saw last year when DeCarlos Brooks was injured, unfortunately, again for him, for several weeks, the ASU running game really suffered. As talented as Scattaboo is, I know that the staff did want to lessen the load on him, not make him the workhorse like Rashad White, like Xavier Valade the year before. But really, just because of the injury to Brooks, Scadaboo really had to take a much bigger load. And I think maybe in the month of November, he really saw that wear and tear really catch up with him. Obviously, the injuries on the offensive line were even bigger major factor of why the running game wasn't playing well at all in the month of November. But, Kyson Brown, I mean, to me, he might be the most intriguing guy. I mean, if you remember, I told you at the end of fall camp last year, the coaches they really don't know how the heck they're going to redshirt Kyson Brown, because he had an excellent fall camp. He only arrived in the summer. And sometimes it's kind of rare for a freshman who is not an early enrollee to have that big of a chance to not redshirt his freshman year. But Kyson Brown did not redshirt, and I think even though he didn't put up crazy numbers at all in 2023, that still served as some kind of springboard to what we saw in fall camp. George Hart, I think, was a very pleasant surprise. I think he's probably playing his best football since he arrived at ASU. So it's really a great headache for Sean Aguano, the running backs coach, to have. And we not even mention Jason Brown, one of the highest recruits in the 2024 class for ASU. So the running back group is definitely stacked. Is definitely more talent than last year, but the offensive line has to be there, healthy, and enforce the block. But we did see a lot of good signs. I thought in fall camp. So in spring practice. If we can see that in fall camp continue, I think that this running group for ASU can be that much special. And for any quarterback, especially a young quarterback like Sam Leavitt, a strong running game is your best friend.
So now when you talk about having some depth at a position where you don't play a ton of guys at once, the natural question these days is wondering if you're going to keep them all around. You mentioned a little bit earlier there's only like a day or two left of this transfer portal window. Is there any reason Sun Devil fans you think should sweat out maybe not the Scadaboos, maybe not the Relique Browns, but someone like a Kyson Brown or others? Again, just throwing any idea out there. Any level of concern that the guys in the position group right now won't be there a week from now?
I can't say there's much worry in my head. I mean, being there every day, you just kind of see how the guys interact with each other, and that group is about as close as it gets. I mean, you see George and Kyson, and they're just laughing and goofing off and after practice and helping the water girls and stuff like that. And, I think Cam Scadaboo has really just embraced the culture. I mean, what was that tweet today that he was like, Willie, I will play for you for no extra charge.
Yeah.
I think DeCarlos loves it here, even though he's battled injury. And the group itself, I just think is very close. I've talked to Kyson multiple times, and when I even asked him, like, how are you guys going to balance? He's like, honestly, when you're playing running back, the fresher legs, the better. We all want to see each other succeed. And it seems like everybody's just kind of bought into that image of the team's success and the culture they're trying to establish and stuff. So at least for me, you obviously never know. We obviously didn't think Elijah Badger was going to leave anytime soon this spring, but
even though he was at the spring game,
he was
interesting. I'll just use that word. I saw him walking around. It's
he
interesting.
Was with Jordan Clark and Jalen Strong and
Chad Johnson.
Yeah. So all guys that are still around, but you never know. But me just being there and getting to know a lot of the running backs, I don't see any sort of signs of any major collapse at any of the guys leaving.
All right, so now let's look at the kind of the wide receiver and tight end positions, because both of those groups lost kind of their presumptive, at least heading into spring, kind of the top guy. Elijah Badger is in the portal. Bryce Pierre jumped in the portal and is now heading to UCLA. And, of course, the wide receivers had the added element of losing their position coach in Rashad Samples.
Yes.
Of course, they did. I think they did pretty well bringing in Hines Ward. I might be a little biased there. But, just kind of starting off, obviously losing kind of those top two guys in those position groups. We all know that the wide receiver room is pretty deep coming in, maybe or at least talented, maybe if not, fully, have the experience or have your production at this level. How confident are we, given what we saw in spring, that, these two position groups can overcome the loss of, a key contributor, if not the top guy on those depth charts?
Well, look, I mean, as far as tight end, it's such a small group, number-wise. I mean, it ended spring practice with only 2 scholarship tight ends. Yeah. So, you're just really hard to, give a long, educated dissertation on the set of tight ends at Arizona State. I think Marcus Douglas definitely shows a lot of promise. I mean, huge body, so blocking is not going to be an issue. But for such a big guy, you think, okay, so something has to give in the receiving skills, right? But I think that in terms of him as a receiver compared to Bryce Pierre, I'm not seeing country mile differences between their abilities, and I think that somebody like Marcus Aurora can really utilize a tight end probably even better than his predecessor, Bo Baldwin. I mean, sure, the offensive line and the job they're going to do pass blocking, can they afford, quote unquote, to have a tight end now run around instead of being a line of scrimmage? That's going to dictate a lot. But I think that, what we saw from him, Cameron Harple, I mean, maybe more of a blocking tight end compared to Marcus Douglas, but I think they'll be fine. I mean, that's needless to say one position where the newcomers, whether it's true freshman Jaden Fortier, who we don't know how healthy he will be in fall camp because he tore his ACL in the Oregon High School State Championship game last November. And like you said, Shimon Metier, coming in as a transfer portal. The newcomers are really going to dictate if this tight end group is really going to be a formidable unit or just an okay unit. They're just not going to expect a whole lot from, again, you talk about a running game being a young quarterback's best friend. A good receiving tight end can also be just a great asset for a young quarterback. So, that's really the discussion of the tight end group, but just a huge TBD. But as far as the wide receivers, I mean, to your point, Brad, yes, it is a deep group. I'm not going to say that losing Elijah Badger is something that you can shrug your shoulders off. I mean, he was a leading wide receiver last year, so you have to put things in perspective. But spring practice was the Jordan Tyson show.
Absolutely.
I mean, I wish my videographer, Justin Lesotosa, and Nick Borgia at times too, could just film just the unbelievable Sports Center catches that he made just time after time. And I think one of his touchdown catches did make Sports Center. Was it him, or am I confusing with somebody else? But
I know Isaiah Jackson's catch in center field for the baseball team did.
But in any event, Jordan Tyson had an outstanding spring. And if there's anybody who you're anointing as the heir apparent to Elijah Badger, I think that's the guy you can say that with a straight face because you saw what he did in the spring. Troy O'Meary, until he got injured, was excellent.
Excellent.
I mean, I know we're talking a lot about Jordan Tyson, but I don't want to take anything away from Troy O'Meary because when he was healthy in spring practice, he was out there making plays too. I mean, just that huge 6'4" to 230 frame. I mean, good luck, trying to defend him on a fade route. The most consistent wide receiver that maybe unfairly got overshadowed by both of those names I just mentioned is Malcolm Stovall.
Yeah.
I mean, I just never saw him have a bad session out there. No. Just absolute Mr. Reliable. So if you go with those three wide receivers to war as your starters, and I didn't mention Jake Smith yet, who had somewhat of a quiet spring, but I think maybe Malcolm Stovall playing as well as he did maybe affected Jake Smith a little bit. Xavier Guillory, as we know, was trying to come back for foot injury. He was increasing his workload a lot in the last 2 weeks of spring, and when he did that, we saw some of the flashes that we saw last year in spring practice. We saw last year in fall camp. I know he had a very disappointing 2023 season, but maybe that's something he just really got out of his system. For some players moving from the FCS level to the Power 4 level, it can be harder. I know that ASU had a really great success with guys like Shamari Simmons. And obviously, Cam Scadaboo wasn't exactly the case for Xavier Guillory, but he's somebody that I think is really going to benefit from that vicious learning curve we had in 2023. So, if ASU maybe can add more wide receiver from the portal, I mean, Kenny Dillingham kind of hinted about that. Interesting to see if it happens. But overall, I think that the quarterbacks group at ASU have a lot of nice weapons at their disposal. And again, going back to my earlier point, if this is going to be a much better ground attack for ASU, I think the wide receivers are going to greatly benefit, and they're talented in their own right.
Now, with the wide receivers the last couple of years, Elijah Badger's been the head and shoulders leader statistically. Pretty big gap between him and number 2 the last couple of years. If you're just to give a guess, and if we fast forward several months and we're, going to look at what the statistics will be for this coming season, do you think it's going to be one guy, whether it's Tyson or somebody else that's way ahead of the pack, or do you think this is going to be kind of more of a collection of a few guys that are statistically within the same range of one another?
I think Tyson O'Meary might be ahead of the pack. But I don't see Tyson having much greater numbers, greater numbers. Than O'Meary, or vice versa. So I think you just have that 1A, and maybe you'll see then the drop after that. But I think Tyson and O'Meary are really set up to have really breakout seasons. I mean, we did see some stuff from Amiri last year, so I don't want to pretend that he just had an awful 2023 season altogether. As you know, Tyson did arrive from Colorado, still rehabbing an ACL injury, only played in one game. But again, if spring practice is any indication, I mean, this is a superstar in the making.
To me, I think Jordan Tyson really took the steps forward to showing the wide receiver one potential. And I think that, if he continues on that trend line and that chemistry with Sam Leavitt continues to blossom at the rate we saw the last 3 weeks of spring, we got something special there in terms of that. My only concern with Omeri is just, mentally, can he keep the head on straight? He was in the doghouse a little bit last year. Yeah. And so, is he going to be able there, Stovall, those were just like razor sharp routes he was running. Yeah, I thought he was spring MVP, so at least the first 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then, but then Tyson got in the flow of things. A couple guys that I think also deserve some mention. Corbin Hendricks.
That's right.
Really was starting to come on a little bit and kind of more of a depth role with Badger and Guillory out those first 2 weeks. I think he was a guy who took good advantage of those opportunities. But then Caleb, I know there's a guy that we talked about a lot, Caleb Black, that
he's right there.
He one step forward, one step back in terms of just, a guy who consistently got open, but just
open. It was awesome. That slot room of Melquan Stovall, Jake Smith, and Caleb Black can be very good, but like you said, Caleb Black, just like one step forward, it's like, oh, he's open, and then it's like, oh, he dropped it, and
it's like 2 or 3 times per practice, and it was really unfortunate. But I think overall, you're not in a position where you need Caleb Black to come in here and be a contributor. You got some dudes in front, so I think we all agree. This is not a better room without Elijah Badger and that talent, but it's a position group that can absorb, I think, a hit of losing that level of talent.
And for those like myself who aren't out there seeing it every day, how big of a factor will this big group of running backs be in the pass game? How does that factor into this conversation, since we're essally talking about pass catchers?
Yeah, significant.
No, I mean, I won't go into too much detail because I also don't want to lose my credential. But just seeing standard football now with how it's played in 5 wide and just the ability to have that group and then add a running backs that are just look a lot leaner than what they were last year. Is
there anybody in particular that stands out from without giving away all the secrets? Is there anybody that specifically stands out that you saw catching the ball from the running back
honestly group? I saw George Hart catch a lot more out of the backfield this spring, but ultimately with Cam Scadaboo dropping like 10-15 pounds of fat and just kind of keep relying on that mass that he had, it was not out of the ordinary to see him out 5 wide and run a route. And I can't say there was many times where the running backs were the ones catching the balls out of a 5 wide, route combination. But when you can just add that ability and then you force a defense to have to play 8 back, then you're just going to find pockets everywhere. And when you have a young quarterback who I just need you to find the open windows right now, and they have the ability to do that, when you have the receivers and the depth going down to a guy like Corbin Hendricks, it at least gives me a sense of hope that there is going to be a lot more offensive firepower this year.
And I would add, in terms of catching out of the backfield, Raleigh Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it a lot at USC.
Yeah.
Obviously being in the same conference with ASU all those years. But Raleigh Brown absolutely did come as advertised. And maybe, and I think Caleb mentioned it earlier, he is a very good runner between the tackles.
Yes.
He's not somebody that just needs open space to really make his mark known. So Raleigh Brown is really going to be all that ASU coaches and fans expected him to be.
Absolutely.
Just a very, very dynamic player that can line up on pretty much any position on offense. And when you talk about an offense that's going to be more dynamic and it can have more playmakers, I think the discussion has to maybe just start and end with a guy like Raleigh Brown. I mean, the value that he brings to this ASU offense, I think it's going to be proven to be one heck of a transfer portal addition.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the offensive line, because obviously all these playmakers aren't going to mean a whole lot if the offensive line has a situation that it was in last year. I did think there was one swinging gate play in the spring game.
Yes, there was.
Yeah, unfortunately did not have a tremendous success. But I think the one thing that really jumped out to me about the O-line, and we talked on the show, Joe, about just maybe that being maybe the number 2 storyline in spring. It seemed like they were content to go throughout the entire spring of just not necessarily having a 1 and 2, or just there was so much experimentation in terms of just positions or sides. Really, it was just kind of Leaf was the only guy who was kind of in a consistent spot. So, and I even talked to a couple of the linemen about just how long will it take to get the chemistry going. Because there was just really, because a lot of mix and match, and we saw Emmett Boley coming back, playing right tackle, but then switching to left. Kyle Scott started guard, maybe kick out the tackle a little bit. Bram Walden was back at the end. We'll start with you, Caleb. You've taken a look at the offense. Just overall, like, what level of concern? Just because they didn't necessarily have a set group going on at times to build that chemistry, and the coach Tuatele and maybe Arroyo and Dillingham were just kind of content, just spend the entire spring seeing what guys can do what along where.
No, it's funny because I've talked to Saga about this at least once a week. When I usually like to talk to him on Saturdays, and it was kind of a recurring question. And even when I would talk to offensive linemen like Sean Na, or when I talked to Emmett Boley, or when I would talk to Joey Sua, or when I would talk to whoever, that was always one of my questions. What has this chemistry been like? And a lot of the answers were pretty consistent in the lines of we are just trying to figure out what we can do, where we're at, and ultimately we do not want to learn the lesson we learned last season, where it's like you have a Sean Na who's really a center guard having to kick out and play tackle against one of the best defensive ends in the Pac-12. I forgot the guy at Utah. It's my name. Yes, and I think right now they're just kind of like, let's see what we have. Obviously, you have a guy like Champ Westbrook's coming in the fall, and a couple other guys. But ultimately, I can't really give a definitive level of concern, because I even said it in the practice reports that I wrote. There wasn't really a 1 and 2 deep. It was just like a Group A, Group B.
The maroon and the gold.
The maroon and the gold. Like there was not much I could see in terms of just overall, like, these are the guys who are going to do it.
And even like the kind of presumptive guys maybe that we would think would be kind of maybe more the first team guys. It seemed like they were even kind of evenly distributed between the maroon and gold. So like it's really hard to get a read on it.
Absolutely. I mean, you see a guy like Sean Na, who now has a lot of experience, just as a true sophomore, or is he a redshirt sophomore? I can't remember.
No, he'll be a sophomore.
Yeah, he'll be a sophomore. Yeah. So with the experience that he has, you're like, okay, this kid's going to be shoo-in at guard and will be able to play his true position now with the added depth. And he's playing center in the second group. And that's a position that I'm sure will be anchored by Lee Fautanu, and you're just kind of like, okay, we'll go with it. I see a guy like Jalen Clem, who brings a lot of promise from Washington, a guy like Josh Atkins, who was moving back and forth from right tackle to left tackle, and you never really got a definitive look, like you said, of who might kind of be leading in a certain position or anything. So that's why the level of concern for me, I can't really put a finger on, because as there was some flashes where we saw them run the ball really, really well in spring, and very mismatched on the offensive line. So I think once we kind of get to fall, see what a real 2 deep looks like, I think we'll better understand where kind of everything is at. But I think, honestly, the mismatching was up to plan. It was a part of the plan by Coach Saga, by the guys buying in, that it's like, look, we need to be prepared to play all 5, and if we can play all 5, stay healthy, keep the depth, then this is going to be a complete 180 of what we saw last year. So I think they were just trying to see where they're at, and we'll just have to kind of put that on pause until we kind of get more towards fall.
I did talk to somebody on the team at the end of spring practice, and I said, okay, if the season started today, what will it look like? And he told me from left to right, Brian Walden, Ben Coleman, Lee Fatnau, Sean Na, and Emmett Boley. Now, etched in stone, no, I probably wouldn't go that far, but I think that's really what the starting 5 would look like. Like Caleb said, there are just a lot of players that maybe didn't have like a consistent spring from practice 1 to practice 15, but definitely showed flashes here and there. So it's a deeper group. I mean, there's definitely more to think about in terms of quality players and where you want to put them compared to this time last year. But I do feel that there is some kind of sorting out that still needs to take place. So the first 2 weeks of fall camp, I think, are going to be really crucial for this offensive line, probably more than any other position, because we know when you come back from Camp to Arizona, which is basically midway through fall camp, you need to establish, okay, this is my first line, this is my second, but this is my first team, second team, I got a season opener in 2 weeks. I need to prepare as such. So I think that's more or less what we're going to see as far as a starting five again. We're not etched in stone, but again, talking to people that should know about this, let's say, this is a starting five that I have for ASU.
Well, that's interesting also because Bram Walden didn't really participate for most of spring, got a couple drills at the end, and then was, I think, the last 2 practices, maybe a little bit in the spring game, seeing team reps. And I think that also echoes what I saw, of that I feel pretty good about the interior of the offensive line. The tackles kind of worry me.
That's an excellent point.
And so Clem, Atkins, they've had their chance. Colby Garvin got some run as well. And
a lot of run.
But I was, maybe it's partially the edges for the ASU defense being really talented guys and good. But and Emmett Boley's still working his way back from that serious leg injury. But a guy that, if the seats are day, that didn't participate until the very end of spring, even though he flashed a little bit last year, I think that just speaks to the concern I have about the overall tackle position. With Coleman, kind of expected him being the experienced guy. Yeah. Leaf, obviously, Sean Knopf, from what he did last year. Maybe that might be a surprise with Issei Matatia coming in with his experience from New Mexico. But I like I like things inside, but just the tackle position still
a question mark
is a question mark to me, and I think something that should be addressed and bolstered in the remaining days or through the portal. Excuse me.
Yeah. I agree.
And that was actually going to be my question: is do you guys feel good with the personnel that they have? They just need to find the right combination, or is it kind of at a more dire level where you need to get some extra guys out there?
I think with the tackle position, I think it's just who's going to do the best job at the end of the day. Right now, if you're not going to add anybody, or if that's not necessarily the area of concern transfer portal wise for the coaching staff right now, I think it's definitely just more of a question of like who is going to do just the best job. I think they have guys who can do it, but it's like you said, question mark. It's a question mark. There's some questions to be answered come, I would say, Camp T time.
And we talk about portal additions. Let's keep in mind we still don't know what the additions are going to be as of the night of April 29th. There's still one more day for the transfer.
Do we know
portal.
what? Is there a time, or is it just by midnight?
Because the 30th is the 30th is the last day.
The 30th is the last day, but don't be surprised if you see somebody May 1st or 2nd
because they
sent
paperwork coming in.
They
did the paperwork.
They sent in the initial paperwork by 11:59 p.m. on the 30th, so that bought them the time that they needed to do. Just keep in mind, I don't want to throw another wrench over here. NCAA sanctions. ASU can have 84 scholarship players instead of 85. You may think it's not a big deal.
Somebody's got to go.
That's the difference.
Exactly.
This one coming up, tomorrow, whatever folks will listen to, because I'm trying to wrap my head around it. That's it, right? Like even for grad transfer, I saw that there's something kind of unique, right?
They did change the rule for grad transfers, which were like willy nilly. They can
could have gone at any time.
They changed the rule, which I think the coaches probably gave their blessing. Yep, you need to by April 30th, even if you're graduating. And even though, let's say you go to school that maybe the commencement is only in late May or early June, you got to decide by April 30th, as a graduate, are you going to be in the portal or not?
This might be a weird question. I don't know if there's an answer for it. If somebody were to not follow that, can they transfer and sit out, or can they just not transfer?
I think you always have the option to go old school and okay, I know I'm going to sit out for a
if
year.
you're just dude, I need to leave.
I want out of here.
Yeah. So basically, but what we're saying is that in all likelihood, barring some weirdness, the names mid to late, by the time we probably get to this weekend across the college football world and basketball for that, because that's across all sports.
Yeah, basketball's May 1st.
Yeah. So the guys that are gone are going to be gone, which is good, and that adds some comfort to where you won't have this. And if fall camp's about to start, I don't like my spot, I'm going to bail. So. Yeah, interesting thing to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. No, it's funny because the football coaches were able to shorten the spring window. Basketball coaches were not, and I heard a lot of basketball coaches personally and just out there saying this portal window for basketball is ridiculous because it really was. It was I think 45 days.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
long.
That is manic.
Yeah,
that is absolutely manic. But life in the portal, and they can Kenny Dilly's have credit. Never complain even once. He embraces it. You want to leave? Great. I'm going to get somebody else from the portal. All good.
All right, let's switch things over to defense, starting along the line. Obviously, some significant holes along the line. You lose a BJ Green, a Deshaun Mallory, inside, outside. There's going to be some holes to fill, but I almost came away from spring thinking that even despite those holes, that the D-line might be the strength of the defense.
Absolutely.
So let's start off perhaps, talking about inside, what we saw from there in terms of guys and additions, guys making that leap like a CJ Fight. How do we feel about the defensive tackles and kind of those middle two of the front 4-man front for Brian Ward?
Yeah, I'm sure CJ Fight's dad will love me talking and bringing up CJ, but I was just very impressed with the year 1 to year 2 jump. I mean, I think it was like the last Thursday or the Wednesday or the Monday before the spring game, like tackle for loss, sack, batted down pass, and I'm like, dude, this kid is a sophomore. Like I just from a pure football standpoint, I was just very, very, very impressed. And then, I mean, just another guy like Justin Wadley, like, just again, just impressed. Like I think I agree with you, Brad, where it's like Deshaun Mallory is a huge loss, I think, in a lot of ways. Just as a person, I think he was really cool, but just as the player, the big physical guy he was, that was able to just really kind of set the tone in the middle. But from what I've seen, just from CJ and Justin, I mean, I was very, very, very impressed. And I know, obviously, you lose Anthony Cooper, and that's kind of it's not the most ideal thing in the world. But I mean, I'm not. But at least my worry meter went down a little bit for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that just looking at the tackles, with CJ, Jacob Kangaika, Jeff Clark, that chop trio right there, I think ASU's in good hands. And for me, it was like, who's going to be at least that fourth guy? Is it going to be maybe a Tristan Monday with his familiarity with the defense? But I think by the end of spring, the guy that really jumped out to me was J.P. Dieter.
Oh yeah,
from Purdue.
Yeah,
and so I think like maybe if you get those four in a good rotation and I don't know if you had the same experience, but talking to any D lineman, they raved about Coach Deron Reynolds and the teaching,
absolutely,
and the growth there. So those four guys, they're all the entire line, but a guy who just eats up football like CJ Fight and just that knowledge and that jump. Jeff Clark with that experience. Jacob Kangaika with just the sheer mass and strength. Yes. JP Dieter's showed some quickness and ability as pass rusher. I really came away feeling good about the interior.
Yeah, we got Mr. Sun Devil Science historian here. CJ Fight, committed, decommitted, recommitted. Is there any player at ASU that went through that path, A, and B, end up being an impact player that CJ Fight maybe isn't right now, but can be? I think CJ Fight is probably it.
Yeah, man. Okay, put me on the spot. I have to think because the kind of stuff happened a little less common back in the day. I might have to look that up. Yeah. But yeah, it's just kind of looking on and reading the reports. It seems like a lot of these new additions are real substantial. I know that it's a position group in total where there's some expected attrition, and you've already seen some of that. Sam Benjamin entering the transfer portal, and some of these names are just ones that make sense. Mm-hmm. They're guys. They're not in the too deep, and even if a guy like Benjamin who played a fair amount last year, they just upgraded a lot. So there's nothing wrong with that, and you would imagine probably he's not it's just an educated guess that he's not the last from the position group to enter the portal. But I mean, you just got to be real happy, and we've talked about this even entering the spring, and just looking at the stuff on paper and what guys like Clark and Kangaika bring to this program from other programs. It just seems like it would make sense. Like these are good solid pickups, especially working within the framework of what ASU can offer for transfers and things like that. But to hear that, it's definitely a plus because you had some higher level guys like a Mallory, like a BJ Green last year, but it looks like we're looking at quite a bit better depth this year than last.
I didn't even mention Jeff Clark, and I'm kind of upset that I did. Jeff Clark did have a really, really good spring, and if and just his character too, I think you can attest to. Brad, Jeff Clark is
he's coming for the title, maybe best interview on the team. He's in that mix.
He's a great talk for sure,
And Jeff Clark wasn't a decommit necessarily, but he was like this close to committing to ASU and ended up committing to Louisville, played there 1 year with Jermaine Lollet, and everything full circle. Like
He's still playing college football. God bless him. Going
Boomer Sooner.
Yeah,
I mean, I think like Jeff Clark almost came here because of BJ Green, and he didn't care that BJ Green left. He still came.
Yeah, that's right, because they're buddies, right? Or they grew up together or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so just now, real quick before we talk about linebackers, moving out to edge and defensive end. Mm-hmm. I think that the tandem right now of Clayton Smith, who's bulked up, I believe, at 245, 247 or so, and Prince Dorba. Looking real good. But then kind of those guys behind, Justin Watley is a guy who has that versatility. You mentioned Caleb play inside, but also was really making some plays outside as well. Elijah O'Neal really jumped out to me as a guy who took some big strides forward. And I talked to him maybe after the third practice of spring, and he just had like a minute-long answer about like what specifically Coach Reynolds has done for him in just the short amount of time they've been working together. So I think that's a good top four. And then obviously we talked about off the top, Jamon Tap adding some depth there and replacing Cooper. Roman Petrie, I think, might be a little bit away in terms of just the build, but like the length and mental approach, I think might help get him there. But I think that, we obviously losing a guy like BJ Green is hurting the Sun Devils a little bit. But if you have some growth and some continued health from Dorba and Smith as your top two guys with some better depth, that could be a formidable group.
Absolutely. And you said it with Elijah O'Neal. I thought he took a really, really big leap in spring this year. And I distinctly remember in Seattle at Washington, I asked Kenny Dillingham, like, hey, Elijah O'Neal, he's getting there. And he was like, it's so crazy you said that because we just had a conversation this week and he got more playing time. And then just to see that he got a little bit more action kind of latter half of last season and now into this spring, and you just saw that jump, and especially losing a BJ Green where you maybe just want a little bit more depth now. I just want to say this, that I speak very highly of Elijah O'Neal and the work he put in this spring for sure.
That game in Seattle, who on defense didn't play well?
Yeah, literally.
O'Neal's someone that I've really been eager to see what he can do this year. Obviously, it's his last shot out there. He came out of the JUCO ranks with some impressive credentials. So, but there was some depth there. Yeah, it's all those guys that came in, Smith, Dorba, they competed along with BJ Green, of course. So there was a kind of log jam there. So he's someone that I'm certainly hoping, and it certainly sounds encouraging with the early returns, that he can kind of have, even if he's not a starter, kind of a breakout year in within that context.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to linebacker. And there's like 5 guys in this group now all of a sudden that have some level of starting experience at the FBS level. Just 2 starting spots in the base, but I think right off the top I think the 3 FBS transfers all really kind of flash some great potential, whether it was, Keyshawn Elliott and Zyrus Fiaseyu, I think maybe in the pole position for that starting job, but Jordan Crook's quickness and willingness to make plays against the run really jumped out. And then, of course, you're looking at guys last year like Tate Romney, who were hampered by some injury stuff, but was able to get out and participate, in the latter half of spring. Caleb McCullough just... I mean, what year is this for him? Like 5, 6? Like he's been like Trent Bourget type of tenure here.
He's up there, I think, because I put together a list I had on the huddle. Yeah, so the longest tenured guys are Anthony Cooper and Bourget from 19, and then McCullough is there from 20, and he's one of a few. So he's in that. Yeah, I think not to get off on too much of a tangent. I think with Stansberry entering the portal, I don't think we even mentioned that one in the position group. But if I'm not mistaken, including walk-ons, which occupy about half the list, I think there are only 11 guys now, I think, who were on the roster prior to Kenny Dillingham's arrival, which is just insane.
Wow. Yeah, that's
because I think it was 12 with Stansberry. So it's, and again, like there are some walk-ons included there, so that's just
Deion Sanders saying, "Hold my beer."
Yeah. He's trying to get it, where he has 85 guys or whatever that are brand new. So
many of those guys that just came here, that the Louis that he brought is now just being kicked to the curb, which is kind of wild. But yeah, anyway, talking about the Sun Devil linebackers, how do you guys see this kind of this depth kind of shaken out? Any concern that now with the remaining maybe 36 hours or so of here that some of that depth might take a hit?
Yeah, that's basically just to introduce it and to piggyback off that. That was the question I was going to have, because this position group kind of strikes me like running back, to where it's like, man, it's really cool they have all this depth. And if this were 2013, I'd be real fired up about it, because then these guys are going to be around the whole time. But when you see a group that doesn't play, it's not a 3 or 4 man linebacker group as far as the base out there. It's only just 2. How do you keep everybody happy?
Well, I mean, not to stereotype, Tate Romney, married, Valley guy. I just don't see him leaving.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, and I know I could say the same about Jacob Conover. Exact, by the way, married and situation, everything. But Tate Romney, I think he'll stay. Caleb McCullough got a lot of run, and I think he might start with Elliott when the season begins. So if I'm McCullough, I don't think I'm really itching, to leave here at all. as far as like other linebackers that didn't really get that much run, I mean, Kavion Thunderbird.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he redshirted last year. I mean, does he really want to transfer out? I don't know.
He's a Chicago guy, if I'm not mistaken.
He is a Chicago guy, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think linebackers. I mean, yeah, you're right. You only need 2, so playing time is even more out of a premium. But I don't know if I see anybody that's kind of just burning my eyes right now. Oh yeah, he's going to be gone by midnight tomorrow.
So if you're thinking that McCullough might be a starter along with Elliott, is that again for the devil's advocate side of things? Is that McCullough having a particularly good spring, or is that a guy like Cyrus Fiaseo maybe not being quite up to what was expected? A little bit of both. What leads you to that conclusion?
I would just say like the same McCullough having a good spring, but also maybe just filling that position, in the linebacker group more than anybody else. I mean, maybe Cyrus Fiaseo is somebody that does not play at the level of the Kellen McCullough can play. I mean, but he had a good spring. Don't get me wrong. But in terms of the exact roles that Brian Ward would require in defense, I think he feel more be comfortable with Elliott and McCullough as the starters and having guys let's say like Romney and Fiaseo, or maybe Fiaseo and Crook backing them up. So I think it's more just talent and also just fitting the system better.
Yeah, I think for a lot of the newcomers, I think they found a good home. Obviously, there's an adjustment, which Brian Ward was very like, we just need to get everything installed. And then he said that they did it, which is good. But I honestly would agree with Hode in terms of just, I think maybe a little bit of both of those things that has Caleb McCullough kind of in there. And if you're talking, I think he might have gained a lot of Brian Ward's trust last season with just coming in for oh goodness gracious, I can't remember his name.
Trey Brown, Will Schaefer, Juwan Mitchell.
When Trey Brown kind of got hurt, a lot of those guys needed to step up, and I think he might have just earned defensive coordinator Brian Ward's trust, and he had a pick on Friday. So
now with this linebacker group and what we're talking about this depth, do you see or predict it to be like a rotation thing, like we saw maybe the defensive line under Rodriguez?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Just because of how aggressive they want to play, these guys are going to be blitzing, stunning. Obviously, they're going to want to drop back in coverage a little bit. I think it's kind of similar to the running back group, where if you can have fresh legs that are going to get into coverage, and then obviously the
They're the ones that are chasing the running backs.
Yeah, the ones that are chasing the running backs, the ones that are going up against O linemen every play, just with how aggressive Coach Ward likes to be. I do think this is going to be one of those things where you're just going to get a lot more rotation, more than just like you have, as much of it is a 2-guy position. I think you're looking at more like 4 to 5 that are going to be in there rotating, and I don't really see, in a good way, a lot of drop off in between a lot of them, which I think is good in terms of I don't know if I see many guys leaving, just because I think there is kind of minutes to go around.
According to Dillingham and Brian Ward, they'll be chasing a lot of tight ends. I mean, you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel.
Yeah, that's right.
In the Big 12, I guess appropriately so, right? 12-12.
Yeah.
But those linebackers will be chasing a lot of tight ends. So that's just one more catalyst to the heavy rotation. We're probably going to see a linebacker, but at Caleb's point, there's not really a big drop off at all from first to second team.
Yeah. Would be remiss if I didn't say I thought Martell Hughes, the true freshman, progressed steadily, and I think wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe contribute on special teams or something this year. Ramar Williams, also a defensive lineman, true freshman, I thought had pretty good there. It's probably worth just a quick mention. All right, so as we kind of wind down here with the defensive backs, obviously kind of maybe the big thing, the big headline came out mid-practice when, to literally everybody's surprise, starting cornerback Ed Woods just didn't show up and ended up in the portal. So that means that all cornerbacks with starts from a season ago are now gone. But there are some quality options there, whether it's kind of the more experienced guy, returning guys like a Keith Abney, some portal additions like Javon Robinson or Terrence Welch, or a true freshman standout, Rodney Bimich. Really looking good. Kind of the 3 levels here in DB, starting off at corner. How do we see the race now that, it's a fresh start with the cupboards bare with Rowe, Ed, D, Ford, all elsewhere? How are we feeling about what we saw in spring in terms of, the race for those starting corner spots?
Well, first of all, Ed Woods is always going to have a warm place in my heart, because I've been doing this for 25 years covering ASU football, and he's the only football player that actually called me to help him out on an assignment. I think it was about social media or sports or something. Just like slid into my DMs, as the youngers like to say, and hey, I'm doing this project on social media and sports and everything. Can I give you a call or something? So
Wow.
That hit a little hard. Hit a little hard when he left. But yeah, as much as a surprise as it was, I think ASU is in pretty good shape over here with Javon Robinson, the Washington State transfer, obviously very familiar with what Brian Ward wants to achieve on defense. Latarius Welch from LSU, took him maybe a little time to get in the groove of things, and I think that once Edwards did make that surprise departure, I think Welch really upped his game. Rodney Bimage, like you said, just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I really thought that the other two freshmen, Chris Johnson and Tony Lisa in Cuba, would probably shine more in the spring. But Bimage, if you had to pick a biggest surprise, if he's not number one, he's very in strong contention over there. So I think at cornerback they will be fine. I don't know if you're going to talk about nickel in a second, but I love the competition between Mason Williams and Cole Martin, the Oregon transfer. I think you just really cannot go wrong with whomever you're going to play over there. So I think in the cornerback group, again, if you're looking at both the nickel and just the traditional cornerbacks, Keith Abney the second.
Yeah.
Just outstanding spring. Another guy that, you understand now why he did not redshirt last year. And he showed, I think, quite a bit also in 2023 as well. So I think if you're Brian Carrington, the cornerbacks coach, and Brian Ward, the defensive coordinator, sure, it's a bummer to lose Ed Woods, but I think you're feeling pretty good about what this cornerbacks group can bring to the table. And more importantly, we talk about an improved defensive line that can make any quarterbacks group look like $1 million.
So do you feel that the cornerback position, despite the departures and graduations, is still stocked enough to where they don't necessarily have to consider moving a guy like a Williams or a Martin over from nickel to cornerback to fortify that position?
I think because you have Cole Martin and Mason Williams that are locking like that 1 to 2 at nickel, I know towards the end of spring, everybody was like, well, can Keith Abney play corner and nickel? And it's you don't really need to worry about nickel right now because you have two guys that are good there. That allows him to just you can play corner. That's what you want to do. If there's injuries, then you can switch over, and they trust him with that. Barrett Honors College, is that right? Keith Abney. So Brian Carrington has gone on record
and Kyson Brown, right?
Yeah, and
Kyson
Brown
Brown too. Yeah.
So Brian Carrington has gone on record saying we trust him. He's in Barrett Honors College. He's got this.
It's also interesting to see which players are now being used on promotional material by the program, and Abney and Brown are guys that consistently, maybe in the next face of the program type guys that maybe the Jordan Clark had had for the last couple of years.
But yeah,
I was gonna say between muscle development and hair, Kyson Brown is ahead of his game because that dude. Again, I'm not at practice. I don't see him every day, but just seeing the videos, the dude is thick. He's a beast. A guy like me can appreciate that. And he's got a mane too.
He's got a cap shoulders. He's got the cap shoulders. So it's pretty sweet. But going back to the corner position, a guy that we didn't even mention was Keontae Bradley, who's going into his second year. And so I think ultimately, that's a group that we said going into spring was deep and there was room to spare. Obviously, Edwards was a guy who was very seasoned and it hurts. Yet this group is still relatively young, top to bottom. But they played very well for how youthful they are, and I can't say I'm worried very much.
I miss a lot of parallels between the wide receiver group and the cornerbacks group. Losing Badger, losing Woods, yes, it sucks, but those are two groups that I think could withstand a significant loss.
Correct.
All right, so we talked about corner, we talked about nickel. Let's talk about the safety positions. This is another this is ASU is running back, receiver, safety is a position where I think they are in great shape. Starting off the top, Xavier Alford, I think, is going to be all Big 12 if he stays healthy. Yeah. Shamari Simmons, that's as good a starting tandem as ASU's had.
Jordan Simone and Damaris Randall.
I was just saying that. Is that the
great historian?
Yeah, those guys, and then Darby was with that couple year stretch when you got first round pick and our guy Jordan Simone and Alden Darby was just one of the happy go lucky amped up dudes there has been. So, but again, you're talking about the 2013-14 era. You won a lot of games at ASU in that thing. So if lightning can strike again, that would be wonderful.
So you got those two guys leading, and then you have Montana Warren, coming back as a redshirt freshman. Now he was probably going to. Play a big role last year prior to the injury. Yeah,
Cam T was
Ghost Rouser really stepped up in the last few weeks, and I think he's he can hit.
I think we all saw it
hits.
on Friday. We saw it on Friday for sure.
Oh my, yeah. Hopefully, Armand Collins is okay. And then Kamari Wilson, who I think started a little bit slow, but obviously has the recruiting pedigree as well. So, I mean, is the question here just like, can you keep them all, or is this like maybe more of like how can you showcase all of these guys in this defense? And granted, you're playing a few at a time, but some quality depth.
No, it's quality, and I think ultimately that this is Shamari's last year, and you are just trying to get what you can from Shamari this year to kind of pass on to still a young guy like Montana Warren. LT is he a junior?
Or he's a junior.
So he's still maybe got some time, and then. Xavier Alford, I think he's going to be all Big 12 as well, and it's just like, how do you showcase them correct? But I mean, I think you're also just possibly even just setting up for the future a little bit. But I can't.
So I think Wilson's only like a redshirt
yeah,
sophomore.
I think Wilson's like a sophomore too. So I think you're just kind of like setting again just the youthfulness of the entire secondary. I can go on.
The youths,
yes. But I just think like it's just one of those things where you have a good veteran leader in Shamari, and that's being able to contribute to the younger guys. Where it's like, this might not even be like the best that we're gonna see in the next 2 to 3 like years, or the next, like counting this year, the next 2 to 3. So, it would suck because I think it might be a possibility. It's like, can you keep them all? I don't know, but I think they're set up in a good spot where if they're all bought in, like how Kenny's kind of saying it is.
The bought in, I mean, Xavier Alford, he just blows me away.
Yeah.
I mean, my nickname to him is Chamber of Commerce. You want Chamber of Commerce of Tempe, Xavier Alford. You want somebody
the most positive man on that roster.
You want to give tours of ASU campus, Xavier
And
Alford.
he's typing in all caps about it too.
Yeah, which, it can be a little annoying, to be honest, but yeah, you talk about bought
It's
in.
like that Ric Flair style going on Twitter, man, or my boy Demario Rich. He gets a little energy too.
But even last year, with the NCAA, we just changed the rule on you and Jake Smith and 10,000 other athletes. You're not immediately eligible. And to say he took it in stride, it's like, yeah, it's going to start to be a little warm here in July. That's like the same understatement. I mean, just the positive attitude. But all jokes aside, that really translated into your play, the play on the field. I mean, Ryan Ward, who I was also, besides being a defensive coordinator, he coaches the safeties. He has to be like just getting up every day with a smile on his face to see that too deep at safety. That's absolutely ridiculous. And there's no way, if this ASU defense doesn't play better than it did last year, that the safeties are not going to be the tip of the spear.
Absolutely.
For this improvement. I mean, it really is. It really is an embarrassment of riches.
So
it really is.
On that general topic, we haven't really addressed this. I don't know if this may be a topic for a different component of things, but not to put you on the spot, but do you have a working knowledge of where ASU is scholarship-wise, and to get to that 84, like, do they got to make some cuts? What work needs to be done?
If there wasn't any breaking news as we're recording this podcast on late Monday night, I believe they're at 83. So if nobody else left the team, and newsflash, there will be some people leave the team. They can only add one more person from the portal and be at the NCAA sanction mandated 84 max. But there's going to be, I think, at least 2 or 3 players that are going to be in the portal between now and 11:59 p.m. on the 29th.
All right, so let's close things out here with a quick look at special teams. We obviously know that Parker Lewis and Canyon Floyd are coming in over the summer, and those guys are probably going to factor in heavily for the specialist role. What we saw during spring is kind of Carson Kiefer battling Ian Hershey. I thought, by and large, Carson was more consistent.
Yes.
Both showed out, pretty decent leg, can hit from 50 plus. Maybe not necessarily cannons that are hitting from 65, but I thought Kiefer was better. What are our quick thoughts on just where the kicker battle stands, and can they do more than just kind of keep the seat warm?
Yeah, I just think Kiefer was ultimately more consistent, and as a kicker, as a former kicker, that's kind of the name of the game. But yeah, no, I think it was really tight at first, but I think there was even one time where I saw Ian miss an extra point, and I was like, that's not good. Like, you can't.
One of the Saturday scrimmages.
I want to say so. So, I think Carson was just overall more consistent, which, I mean, all power to him. Like local kid, doing his thing. So, but I like you said, I think once Parker Lewis and what was the other guy?
Cannon Floyd.
Oh, Cannon Floyd. Once they get here, I think that's gonna just kind of shake it up a bit.
And plus, Kelly, you have your finger on the pulse on USC. Growing up a USC fan, you saw what Parker Lewis did there in the 2 years at USC.
Yeah, a quick
honorable mention. In Pac-12 second team.
Yeah, quick story about that. I was literally standing next to Parker Lewis when Clay Helton went up to him and like offered him a scholarship. I was in the same like group as him at the USC specialist camp. It was pretty cool, but it was clear at that camp, like the leg on that kid. And it's a shame because after I kind of saw him at USC, then he went to Ohio State. I really didn't hear anything about him, but like I've seen the kid like literally as close as you can probably get, unless you're his specialist coach, to him kicking. The kid's got a leg, so that's why I think once he kind of gets in here, I think it's kind of Parker Lewis's thing to lose.
And I want to get into football cliche
because
mode.
he can't lose.
Okay.
I don't want to get into football cliche mode, but Parker Lewis was done dirty by Ohio State. I mean, if ASU fans needed another reason to hate Ohio State besides the Rose Bowl of 1997, just read the article, the interview I did with Parker Lewis. I mean, they absolutely did him dirty. This guy, local kid, obviously is just coming with a huge chip on his shoulder. I think he should be the starting place kicker. This is going to be probably more of a battle at punter between Ian Hershey and Cannon Floyd. I know a lot of people were raising an eyebrow when I told my subscribers last year that ASU did want to redshirt Ian Hershey because they just didn't know who they're going to get out of the portal when it comes to punter and everything. And I think it kind of pays off because when your season's going nowhere, you don't want to burn the red shirt of a punter.
Correct.
And I know there were quite a bit of struggles with Josh Carlson over there. We're not going to revisit, that. But, I think Ian Hershey and Cannon Floyd, very, very talented incoming freshman, another local kid.
Yeah.
Ranked not only top in the state of Arizona, but number 5 nationally. That's going to be maybe under the radar, not as advertised as other
Just to
battles.
interject, because Rivals only does one ranking for all like kickers and punters, so that makes it even look better. He's like the number 5 kicker / punter, of all that collective group, so it makes it look a little bit better.
No, absolutely. So I mean, I think under the radar, just because people don't really get that the needle moved when it comes to specialists. I think there's going to be a really nice battle over there. And if it's going to be Parker Lewis and Cannon Floyd as your starting kicker and punter, that is going to be an upgrade over last year. And I know last year's special teams in those departments was a sore spot. I mean, the long snapper Zeller.
Slater Zellers.
Slater Zellers. I don't got a brain cramp over there. I mean, the guys that can play in the NFL. NFL scouts, when it comes to long snappers, just drooling over that guy.
Even as of now, I don't think he signed with anybody.
No, I think he's signed, but
take his time.
Steve Roush has said that is the best long snapper he's worked with. So
man,
I'm gonna
Steve.
I'll take it from Steve Roush.
But I think special teams. Unfortunately, the bar is pretty low to clear from last year. But I think it's a bar that Parker Lewis and Ian Hershey / Cannon Floyd are going to clear quite nicely.
All right, so as we close things out here, real quick, we've already talked about all of the players and battles and everything. Now, put a cap on this with maybe some awards real quick. Starting off with just maybe some spring standouts, MVP types, maybe one from each side of the ball. For me, I think on offense, it's a guy, you just got to be Jordan Tyson. Clear choice for me. On defense, I think it's Clayton Smith. It seemed like every day he's getting a sack or 2 or 3. So those are the 2 guys on each side of the ball that I think really kind of stood out.
For me, just because I know probably most everybody will say Jordan Tyson, I'll go Melquan Stovall just because, again, consistency from day one before he kind of got outshined by Jordan Tyson in the second half. But I think for me, for Melquan too, it sucks losing Rashad Samples. Great hire in Hines Ward already. Obviously, Adrian Wilson, the commitment and stuff like that, and how much of an impact he had with that. But that said, just him being a veteran for that group with Elijah Badger leaving too, just stepped up and being Melquan. He's being Melquan every day. And then on the defensive side of the ball for me, Keyshawn Elliott came in.
Stole my pick.
And did his thing. Very consistent. Although we were talking about who might take, between Caleb McCullough or Zyrus, But we all said Keyshawn, and it's because we've seen him, a great guy to talk to and stuff like that. So yeah, those would be my two.
All right, so Hotz, who's the offense? No, we know your defensive pick, so who's on offense for you?
On offense, because everybody's going to say Jordan Tyson, I'm going to say Cam Scadaboo. Kenny Dillingham said at the end of spring practice he thought it was a top 3 MVP. Like we all said over here, just leaner, leading the charge at running back. It is a deeper running back group, and I think for a guy like Scadaboo to still stick out as much as he has really says volumes about his ability. Obviously, I think he's enjoying, at least right now, a much better blocking offensive line, so really let him operate. So I would, just to go kind of contrarian over here, because Jordan Tyson obviously had a great great spring, but I think Cam Scadaboo is right over there. And if you're really debating between those two, that's a pretty good debate to have.
And the newest Burrito Express signee, he is correct.
Oh, okay. The burrito.
The burrito is coming. So
there you go.
What are they going to do for that around Halloween? So for me, since I'm not out there, it's tougher to say since I'm not seeing it every day in action. I'll kind of defer to what the highlights that I would read in reports and things like that, and just the common names that are coming out here. Obviously, Tyson and Stovall are ones that caught my eye. Just again from reading reports, things like that. I'll throw on just positive, maybe not like from an MVP category, but just people that were impressive. The guy like Raleek Brown seemed like he was making some headway there. And, you got to give some credit to Sam Leavitt, because if he's in the position that he's in, if he is earning the trust of the head coach and the offensive coordinator, if we are in a spot where it's, unofficially official that he's essentially QB1 right now, all these things, then I think you got to give him some credit in that regard. It certainly could still be a 100% wide open competition, and it might be a wide open competition when it gets to the fall, but just at this particular checkpoint, if this is the praise that is being heaped upon him, if we're talking about, because I know I didn't see this coming, for a guy that just got to the program a handful of months ago, going against, even if it's just one guy who's been in the program longer than anybody on offense. So whatever happened on the practice field behind closed doors to create the situation where Leavitt is, again, earning the praise that he's earning, then that's something that deserves some recognition as well.
All right, real quick. Who's a guy or guys that you think have some ground to make up based on what you saw in spring and how things kind of shook out, starting with you, Caleb?
Yeah, we talked about it like last day, like DeCarlos Brooks on offense. For me, it's amazing what he adds when he's healthy, but now with such a deep room and with a lot of guys playing well, I hope when he does come back healthy in fall, I really hope to see just that DeCarlos come back. Are we doing both sides of the ball?
I just wonder.
That's for me, just DeCarlos. I just hope he does bring a lot to the table when he's healthy. So I just hope that he's able to just find his rhythm and find his stride again. So that way, when come fall, this running back room could get any better. Add DeCarlos, and I think he really actually does add something, even though it's such a deep room.
For me, I'm saying all the offensive tackles. Just somebody's got to step up, solidify that, and hopefully we see some stuff shake out well.
I would say Jake Smith. We talked about all the wide receivers that did have excellent springs, so you can only have so many standouts at any given position. But Jake Smith, I really would like to see a lot more from him in fall camp. Maybe he's not going to unseat Melquan Stovall as a starter, let alone the other two wide receivers, O'Meary and Jordan Tyson. But I'd like to see him have like a really, really strong fall camp. So if he's the first man off the bench, when it comes to wide receivers, that you're really going to feel that there's no drop off at all.
So the couple that I'll name are not necessarily from the perspective of like criticism, like, hey, you need to step up, but main ones that I hope to see, that from. I'll echo Jake Smith. That's on my list as well, even before Hode said that, because he's someone that you want to have the best possible. I don't believe his story ends this year, but with all that he's gone through over the last couple years of his life, I don't know if there's anybody on the roster that deserves a comeback story greater than Jake Smith. So again, you hope that the opportunities are there. And the second, in a similar vein, just different circumstances, Trent Bourguet. So, name one quarterback before, and I'll name the second here. I think, again, if Leavitt is in the position where he's the top quarterback right now, that deserves credit. Trent Bourguet is someone that's put his all into this program, been around longer than anybody has overcome more, athletically than I honestly, many players that I could think of. It's hard to, in my head, pluck an ASU player from the football program of the 25, 30 years I've been following with that have worked harder, that have done more for the within the program and kept with it. You don't really see these stories all the time, especially in a circumstance like his with the era that we're in with the extra COVID eligibility and things like that. Someone that's doing it just for many, many years. He is someone that, deserves a fair shot at that. So certainly hope that that's the case as we enter the summer and fall camp, because he's obviously someone that on many occasions has shown the ability to be a high power quarterback at this level. Now then, there are things that others might bring that might be perhaps more compatible with certain offensive schemes. That's something that is a little bit beyond me, because again, I'll say, I'm not there on the practice field seeing everything as they develop, and I'm certainly not behind the scenes in position meetings and things like that with coaches, but someone that I would love to see get the absolute most out of what he can do and force the coaches to make a very difficult decision. I would love to see that out of Trent Bourque this fall camp.
I like that.
All right, last one. Let's start with Joe. Just overall, the biggest areas to kind of address, in the fall going forward based on what we've seen so far through spring.
I mean, at this point, it's really, a process of elimination, and I kind of got to go with your concern, Brad, there as far as the offensive tackles, because, you feel, if you go through the other position groups, and I don't need to do that bit by bit because we've already done that, you feel pretty good on all the other levels. You made an addition at tight end, so even though there were questions there and a departure, you feel pretty good, I think, with that. Defense, especially, defensive line, linebacker, safety, you're feeling real good. So I think, again, process of elimination, but not just a random pick that happens to be the only one. There's a need at offensive tackle. So whether that's the current guys really stepping it up and being reliable as things move on, or if it's the addition of one or more players, if I'd identify one particular group, I mean, cornerback might be there, but the evaluations you all gave are spot on as far as, having the confidence there. Again, just when you have a bunch of guys that just haven't played at this particular university, it just kind of gives you a little bit of trepidation. But offensive tackle, because we saw last year and have seen many times that if you're weak there, if you're not reliable and consistent there, that's going to throw everything off, and we just don't want to see like 5 or 6 guys starting at quarterback this year. Keep it to 1, maybe 2.
Yeah, nice. So I'll echo that. Yeah, offensive tackle. I want to see what the offensive line looks like overall. Just once they do get that kind of those 2 deep going. Hode, what's your biggest concern?
Yeah, I'll expand the offensive tackle really to the passing game. To me, it's just a running thread. Sam Leavitt or whoever the quarterback is, can they prove that they can be the guy? From offensive tackles, obviously pass protection, all the way through wide receivers. Yes, it's a deep group, but can you really withstand the loss of Elijah Badger and guys like Jake Smith and Xavier Guillory that for different reasons for each, we haven't really seen them play up to the capabilities in spring practice. Can they really turn in a good fall camp so you can look at that wide receiver group and say, yes, not only does it look deep, but it really is deep when you see him practice day in and day out. So to me, we're just really the passing game, but again, goes starting a quarterback, through offensive tackles, for the wide receiver group, just to see all that come together, I think is crucial for the Sun Devils.
All right, take us home, Caleb.
I'm going to go with Joe and just kind of piggyback off just the offensive line. I think, again, when you kind of go through every group and you're just like, hey, this group's deep, this group's deep, this group's deep, this group's deep. And ultimately, it's nice to see like 3 groups being able to go out there at offensive line and stuff like that and be able to have 3 groups and practicing groups, I might add, because we were both out there. A lot of us were out there last fall, and that was not a pretty sight. But if they can get the tackle position down, I think it's kind of the big difference between good and great. But it's just I can't say it's like there for me right now. Where that's where that's where the attention. That's the eyesore, as some might say right now. So. With how everything else is going. Right. So, yeah.
I think that's a pretty good, in-depth, detailed wrap of ASU spring practice. So I think that's going to do it for this episode. Speak of the Devils, I'd like to thank our illustrious guests. Of course, for any people that are just still somehow are not in the huddle, how can folks get involved with what you're doing?
Yeah, just go to devilsdigest.com, click on this sign-in button, As we know, has been a crazy offseason. Will continue to be a crazy offseason. Lots of news to dole out there. We didn't talk too much about the recruiting visits, but I gave my subscribers an ample heads up on each and every recruit that was coming down the pipe. There's still some good news that's going to come down the pike over here starting on Tuesday and maybe later in the week as well. So if you want to be all clued in and know what's going on with recruiting, both transfer portal and the high school ranks, sign up at devilsdigest.com.
I mean, and, you're likely to get an athletic director hire, within the next month, maybe at the latest. You're talking about recruiting, even though the school year's ending, and historically this might be a bit of a downtime. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on that's going to feed right into fall camp, over these next few months. So again, this stuff doesn't slow down.
Amen.
All right, Caleb, how can folks keep up with what you're doing?
Just Caleb Campero on Twitter. I plan to be. Second semester was rough, I'll be honest. So I'm planning on being a little bit more active, especially as stuff kind of comes out and paying attention to more of the off season going into next fall. So Caleb Campero on Twitter, and that's usually what I'm kind of active on. So.
All right. So, and also be sure to stay tuned after we sign off here for an interview that I did with Sam Leavitt right after the spring game. And also be sure to follow the show on the social media side on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, Instagram at Speak of the Devils, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Facebook. Give me follows at BDenny29.
And you can follow me at Joe Healy42. Huge thank you, shout out to our awesome sponsors, Jones Auto Group, the aforementioned DevilsDigest.com. Double dipping here with my man Caleb here because we got Cactus Sports.
That's right.
Get on down there, put Caleb to work a little bit, buy some
right.
gear. Burrito Express, of course, we mentioned them as well. Just add in more and more. I think they got some new menu items I got to try. They got like some quesadillas and some tacos and things. We got to get in there. Spaghetti Shack.
Bring it back to the spaghetti taco.
Exactly. Ooh. We need like a taco showdown or something.
Ooh.
Might be in the works here. Might be in the works. I just thought that might have to be something here. And Sun Devil Family Charities. Always support them, of course.
And be sure to support the good brand at homefieldapparel.com. Use offer code SOTD23 for 15% off your first order. They got a great 26-piece Arizona State collection. Also, be sure to give us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. Joe and I will be back at some point. Off-season mode is now fully engaged. So spring game in the books, winning night. How was that kind of a factor in for quarterback, with these high wins?
Yeah, it made me overthrow a couple balls. Can't blame it on the win. I got to adjust there, but it's just being able to adjust. And we haven't had a windy day yet, but it's good experience to learn from.
Overall, now with spring in the books, how do you feel this first camp as a Sun Devil went for you?
It went well. Obviously, you want decisions back. Balls back, things along those lines. The way that I carry myself on the field, always looking to get better with that because being a quarterback, you got to be a leader, every day. Showing up with the best attitude and holding guys to a high standard, but doing it in the right way.
Where did you see the greatest growth from, the early parts of spring now through the last couple of weeks?
Just familiarity in the offense, just understanding where the ball needs to go in certain plays, certain looks, you kind of get a feel, coverage-wise where the ball's going to go. How defenders, what routes they're going to look at, how they're going to carry certain things. So just, familiarity.
Recently Kenny mentioned that at the season restart today that you'd be the guy at QB1. What did it mean to, be a newcomer, but also, pretty quickly get the, at least that recognition. Obviously the job's not done, but just, at this point, things are trending well.
Yeah, it's spring. It means what it means. We're going to bring another guy. So I'm ready to go to battle. Obviously it feels good hearing those words, but just coming back getting better every single day.
What are some of the things that you're looking to do into the summer to make sure that you remain that QB1 guy?
Yeah, same things I've been doing. Not going to take a different approach. Just showing up to workouts, putting my best foot forward and, being that guy for the team. Now that I got my, more of a leadership role on the team, I feel like I'm going to start utilizing that rather than, I came in and just had to put my head down and work. So stuff like that.
And watching the practices over the last 2-3 weeks, the connection with Jordan Tyson you guys have really has jumped out. What has it been like the kind of the key behind that chemistry and the rapport on the field?
Yeah, he's a pretty easy target to find. He's a great player. Any quarterback's going to be able to find him. I feel like we have a special bond with that. I haven't been able to throw it at X too much and stuff like that, but Troy's been out too, and all those guys. So it's just great being in the whole room. Jordan's a heck of a player. We got 10 other dudes in the room, and I'm just excited to get back to work with them and get timing down.